Cool. All right, so new site part 2. As we mentioned, new site's going to be a multi-day challenge or challenges. We started new site 1 last week. We're just going to continue, add on to it, kind of learn new React concepts and new things we do with React. So today we're going to be focusing on something called the React router. This will kind of handle navigation properly within our React app. We can't simply do like normal navigation as we would with normal pages because that kind of doesn't work well with our React application here. So this is new site part 2. I'm going to copy the URL, go through our motions here. So git clone, copy that down. Oops, looks like I already cloned it. Not a problem. Let's do news site 2. Git, sorry. Mondays, right? So I'm going to git clone the URL, and then again, by default, a folder of React new site 2 is going to be created. Looks like I already have that copied down. So if you want to create a new name for the folder, use append it after a space. So let's do new site 2. That should be fine. All right, so that cloned it down into new site 2. So we'll do cd news site 2. Why can't I find this? Oh, new site. Apparently I can't type. Call it new site, whatever. And then we'll bring that up in a quick window. All right, so there's my VS Code. Drop that into a new desktop, make that larger so you guys can read it. All right, looks like I need to update my Visual Studio. I keep putting that off. I'll put it off again. All right, so let's read our directions, make sure we know how to set this project up. So each day we're gonna be adding on to our new site project. We're going to create 1 new component, 2 new pages. Sounds great. Routing system will be the highlight here. So you have a choice. I would recommend option 1, where you kind of add on to your own new site 1 and kind of just keep adding on to that. If you hypothetically didn't get to new site 1 or you didn't get it fully functional, we do give you the code based on what new site 1 should look like. You can add that to your starter new site 2 project so that you have something to work off of. So again, I would recommend using your own just because you're going to have your own styling. You know, your components might be a little different. Definitely use your own if you have that. So create a new React project, copy our components, data, and pages, yada, yada, yada. All right, let's create our React project first. So to do that, I'm going to do npx create React app, and then I'll call this news with an S site 2. All right, so that's going to take probably a good old minute or 2. So let's continue reading here. So after we create a React project, we want to copy over components, data, and pages from the source directory. So we have our source directory provided with some items in it. We're going to copy those over. Keep that in mind. Copy that. We're going to add some styling. Again, I really like adding some styling to our pages. So we're going to use something called React Strapped or React Bootstrap that we can use directly in our React projects. Instead of using our CSS file, we could use React Bootstrap and use their components inside of our project. So we'll do this shortly, but let's get to our first item. All right, so that's installing. We need to install Bootstrap, React Strap, or React Bootstrap. I actually don't know the difference, Tom. Do you know the difference between these two? Are they similar, different projects?
React Bootstrap is the official Bootstrap React library, where React Strap is a third-party library that's supposed to emulate Bootstrap. Either you can use either or, but I just want to. They are a little bit different, but they're very similar.
Gotcha. Thanks, Tom. Yeah. So you probably won't have too much of a hassle working with either of these. Going off of what Tom said, if this is the official official sponsor of React, we'll kind of use React Bootstrap and see how that goes. If you're using React Bootstrap, you need to import. All right, we'll go through these steps. Let's see what our installation's there. All right, we got our happy hacking message, so I think we should be good to go. All right, given that, let's continue on. So I'm going to do my installations right now so I don't forget them. So I'm going to copy this, npm install React Bootstrap. Give that a run. Again, this should be adding to our package.json. So if I look in here right now, what do we have? We have React, React DOM, React scripts. This should have added. There we go. Does not add it. I make stuff up. Oh, so that is my bad. So notice I actually installed it on the top level. That created a new package.json for me. That is not what I wanted. So let me delete this. I only want one package.json for my entire project, and that is inside my folder. So I need to go cd news site 2. And again, sorry for the poor naming. My project folder is new site 2, and then my React project is news site 2 nested within that. So hopefully you guys have better naming than I do. But here, now I want to do npm install. Because again, I don't want two package.jsons. That's going to cause you problems. You just want one central package.json. This should get React Bootstrap added to it once it's completed. So let's actually see that update right here. There we go. Notice that Bootstrap 5.1.3 got added here. So that is what I expected. Cool. All right, we got that installed. What else can we do here? We need to copy over some files. So again, if you have your own new site 1, highly recommend using that. If you do not, we do have a source folder that has items in there. I'm going to copy some things over. So let's see. We have our source folder. We want to copy over app.js, drop that in there. Yep, replace that. Then we have a components folder, drop that in here. Data folder, and a pages folder. Okay, so that should have been copied everything over. I don't need my outer SCR folder anymore. All right, let's just launch this, see where we're at, and then kind of add on from there. So to start this, I'm going to do npm start. That should start my React server and bring up browser. There it is. All right, still loading. Takes, not sure why it takes so long. There it comes. All right, so this is what your new site 1 should look like, more or less. Again, hopefully you had some more additional styling, like this menu I'm not a fan of, kind of congested, but it's still a menu that you can click on. With new site 1, I think the only thing we do right now is that we print out the item you clicked on. Looks like we have a warning here. That's something, again, warnings are okay. Your application is likely still going to work, but definitely read the warnings and try to address them if you can. So it says each child in a list should have a unique key prop. This is an app nav. Let's take a look at that. So app nav, let's go find that component. App nav. All right, so again, this is a common warning that you'll see. When you create items kind of in a for loop, you need to have a unique key for each of them. And this is so that React can identify each element kind of individually. So here we want to have a key for this item, I think. So key will be, we don't have anything unique here. What is nav item? So nav item, let's kind of get oriented here. Nav items data, take a look at that. All right, so we have a label and a value. I guess these will be unique enough, so I'll just use the value as my key. Kind of quickly get a key in here. So key will simply be nav item dot value. All right, let's see if that takes away our warning. All right, so our warning's gone. That's great. I don't know what this violation is all about, but I will ignore that. Okay. All right, so this is, again, new site 1 should give you something that looks like this. Now we're going to add on to it. So looking at our README, let's continue reading on. So we copied everything over, copied app.js. We'll do React straps shortly. Yeah, so we have A tags that aren't doing anything. So let's take a look at that. We're right here. So our href goes to nothing. Well, what if we actually wanted to go to something here? So if I did, instead of this, what if I went to, where do I get to? Slash nav item dot value. Not sure if this will actually go anywhere. So if I click now, that added that. That's all I want. Nav item. How do I do this? So href went to curly braces. How do I escape those? Oh, I think I just need to do like that. Maybe. Give that a try. All right, so notice I went to /opinion. Obviously our item here doesn't change, but what's actually happening is that our page is resetting. So every state value that we had got wiped away if we had state values. So a tag will give you navigation, but it won't actually navigate properly within your React app. So again, anytime I click one of these links, I go to a new page, /politics, /NY region, /opinion, but my React app is resetting here. If you kind of notice a reset that happens here, if we actually want to see this reset, let's kind of hack this in here. We can go to my app.js. And so we have nav items, we have article. Actually, our article should be resetting. I think that's what I was covering up. All right, so notice the article we have right now. I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's by Benoit Marine. Hopefully I pronounced that close enough. When I go to a new link, notice that my article refreshes. So our page is entirely resetting. So we're getting a new article because we're just getting a random article initially. So every time we click something, our application kind of refreshes. That's not what we want. We want to kind of maintain our application state. And that's something that we're going to use React Router to achieve this. So if we go back to app nav, again, using href, not going to achieve ideally what we want. So let's get rid of that. Add back our hashtag. So that's going to navigate to the current page. That won't refresh our page. Let's continue reading. So component 1 is the article list. We have a new component today. It's going to be stubbed out. Article list component. Instead of showing a random article, we want our homepage to show a list of article teasers. Your mission is to handle the props. Okay, so we're going to have an article list component that should take in an articles and a handle title clip function. Sounds doable. So let's get to that. So we have article list component here. There's nothing in here right now. It's a functional component, returns an empty div. Article list should return you a list of all the articles available. So to do this, we're going to take in 2 props. One is an array of articles, and the second is when we click on the article, what happens. So let's take articles first. Let's go back to our app.js. Look, I'm lacking space here. Let's collapse this. Oops. And let's get rid of this maybe. I'm gonna make this smaller. I feel like I'm kind of congested here. All right, let me have this. You guys can't read this. I can make it bigger if needed. But we have article teaser down here. That is showing us article, but we want to show an article list instead. So here I'm going to, let's make sure we follow directions. So article list component. All right, we'll wire up in the next section. So let's just, do we have article list here? All right, we'll proceed assuming that we have props. All right, props will be passed down to us, and we're going to have create a new function. Let's call it render article titles. That's gonna be a function. So again, I'm creating a function because I don't want to nest all my logic within here. So I'm going to create a new function. Let's do const render article titles. Make that anonymous function. That arrow. All right, so we're going to get something from props, and we're assuming we get props.articles passed on to us. This should be an array of articles, as the requirements kind of noted. So here we're going to create some elements. This is, again, something I want to reiterate. I want to make sure that you guys are comfortable with array functions because you're using them a lot. Again, you can achieve things with just using a for loop, but array functions are usually more handy. So I'm going to use the map function here. So I'm going to do let items equals props.articles.map. And this is going to take in each individual article. And that should give me back something. Text, believe map gives me an article and an index. Might want to use that index. And we want to return something here. So we'll do article teaser. All right, so this article list is going to render a bunch of article teasers. To do that, I need to import article teaser. It looks like that got handled for me. So return article teaser. Let's kind of remind ourselves what article teaser looks like. So article teaser looks like it takes in the handle title click and a title and an ID. All right, and so we got a number of things we got to pass in here. We should be able to do that from our article. So it looks like we want here. So props.title, created dates, ID, and all right. So we have 4 items. I'm just going to copy this because I keep forgetting what we need. All right, so I just want to know what props I need to pass in. So we have an ID. ID will be article .id. All right, and then what else do we have? We have a title, so we'll pass in the title. Again, I'm just trying to understand what props that article teaser needs. So props.title, article.title. All right, what else?
Hey, Unger, I have a question.
Yep.
So just so I understand this, what you're doing here is within a component, you're actually creating elements of another component, and that's fair game in React.
When you say elements of another component, could you clarify what you mean by that?
Because article teaser is a component in itself, and an article list is also a component. But within article list, now you're effectively creating elements of another component within that component.
Absolutely. Yep. That is exactly what we're doing. This is the whole idea of why we create components in the first place, because so we have that reusability right here. We're creating a bunch of article teasers that's going to be nested within an article list component. Yep. Absolutely. All right.
I was I was really confused yesterday because I didn't know you could do that. So I'm over here recreating like list elements and trying to put them into another component.
Yeah, so again, components are just glorified elements. Like where we have divs, like a div is an HTML element. An article teaser is a React component. They both function in the same way though. You render an element or a component. Same thing's gonna happen. Again, a component has more logic to it than a HTML element, but they behave the same way in terms of, yeah, you can nest them. You can do pretty much the same thing you can do with elements, you can do with components. So we have article teaser, we're passing in some props. We need a handle title click, so let's pass that in. So handle title click is going to be a function, it looks like. And looking at our, again, README, it looks like handle title click is passing to article list. So we should be able to kind of pass that down to our article teaser as well. So I think we just want to kind of forward that props, so props handle title click should be passed on to us. So again, these are items we're going to have to resolve at some point. Handle title click and articles is something we need to pass on to article list. We've not done that yet because article list is not being rendered, but we'll get to that. All right, so let me get rid of this. Let's clean up my mess here. So extra parentheses, yep. All right, so returning an article teaser items is going to be a new array that contains a bunch of article teasers. We need to return items that will be nested between a div. All right, so that should achieve that objective. Let's make sure we didn't miss anything. So, yep, we did this part. You may want to utilize the spread operator. That is not something I did, but maybe I should. So spread operator, we've talked about it. I don't know how much we focus on it. So I broke it apart like this. I'm targeting ID, title, and created date directly. I believe what they're suggesting is you can do something like this. And this will essentially achieve the same thing. Does everyone understand what the spread operator is doing? If not, definitely let's pause here and answer any questions.
Yeah, can you just explain it again?
Absolutely. So articles, let's actually take a look at what our article should look like. So I'm going to go to news JSON. This entire blob here, if I can capture it correctly, there's a lot to copy here. So that level, this blob that I've highlighted here, I missed it here. All right, let's get it here. Everything I just copied right now that's highlighted, that is one article. So everything in one individual article object has an abstract, a byline, a created date, des facets, geo facets, item type. Again, all these items are part of our article data. So when we load in our data in app.js, we simply take in the news, and then we use the news array and grab a random article from it. So again, each article, each element in our news array has all of these fields on it, right? So byline, created date, geo facet. Again, some of this we are using, some of it we are not. If I look at app.js, we just capture a random article and we strip off some data off of it. Okay, so it looks like we take our random article and specifically strip off ID, title, abstract, byline, image, and created date. So we kind of drop all the other items that we're not using. We're not using geo facet, item type, kicker. All that stuff is no longer part of our internal data that we're keeping track of with article. All right, so that's one article. When we do a spread operator, let me copy that. Quick reference. Let's go back to our article list. So the spread operator, what is this spread operator doing? That's a great question. Let's kind of draw it out here in comments. What I want. All right, so one random article will look like this. Let's say our ID 1, title might be donuts are great. Abstract will be donuts are the new superfood. And byline, well, obviously I wrote this. And image, we're not gonna have an image, so we'll make that null. Created date will be, hopefully I get this date correct. 1, what is today? 29th November. All right, hopefully that's a valid date. So this is what one article will look like. Let me make sure I clean this up. So let's say my article. All right, so this is one article object that has an ID, title, abstract, yada, yada, yada. Article. All right, what does a spread operator do? So the way I imagine it is when you do something like ... my article. Again, this is not valid syntax. I'm just kind of drawing this up in comments. What this essentially is doing, so if that arrow function is not what I want, I'm just kind of showing an arrow. So the spread operator takes your object and breaks it apart into basically ID equals 1, title equals donuts are great, and so forth. Are great. Let's do one more. Let's say image equals null, and so forth. So basically, it's going to take your entire object and kind of, I don't know if it's the right term, but like deconstruct it. I say break apart. So each of these items are now individual values. They're no longer bundled together. So ID is separated out from title. These are just two individual key value pairs that get created. So again, this ... is the spread operator. It's not the same as my etc. here. So whenever you see ... that is breaking apart an array, you can use it also for objects or arrays to kind of get the individual components and kind of decouple them from each other. So the spread operator gives me individual key value pairs. And that is useful because I want key value pairs for my props here. So using a spread operator, what this in effect is doing is giving me an ID equals something. And it's also giving me a title equals something. What do we have? Do we have image equals something, byline equals something. So everything that was in my original object, right? ID, title, abstract, byline, image, created date. All those items we pass down as props individually here. I could pass down just my article as a prop, right? Article equals article. That would be valid, but however, if we look at article teaser is not expecting an article. It's expecting individual data points here. So given that, we can't pass on article because article teaser is not ready to accept the article. we could refactor this and say, all right, well, let me just change this to an article instead of ID. So instead we could do something like article.id and have access to that ID directly. But in lieu of kind of refactoring what we had working here, we're just gonna kind of agree with whatever article teaser wants and pass on only what it's expecting. So instead of passing article as a prop, because article teaser does not want an article, we either can use a spread operator to give it ID, title, abstract, byline, image, and create a date, all as props. However, I'm going to make a judgment here and say, looking at article teaser doesn't care about image. Article teaser doesn't care about byline. So I don't want to pass in extra information. So that's my choice. Again, doesn't necessarily hurt, but I'd rather just do it manually. So instead of doing the spread operator, which should work, again, this will definitely work. I'm going to do it individually, just so I know exactly what data I'm passing. Any questions though on spread operator? I know it's definitely a new operator, but it's definitely gonna be handy within React. Title equals what I had before. Article.
So I see that it's turning words, I guess. It's turning like the key value pair from the object into a key equals value, but those are children. Those become children of the object props. Then is that accurate?
Children of the object props. You kind of lost me.
Yeah. So whenever you call the ID and title from my article over on the articles list, we could use the ... spreader, or the way that you put it was ID equals article.id, title equals article.title. But then to call it, you use the props.id and props.title, right?
Yeah, it won't change. So either way I do it, it's not going to change what's going on. So let me just kind of add this back in here. Give me 1 second. Article dot created date. All right, so both of these will give me the same thing. So if I do this or I do this, article teaser is still going to get the data it wants. So if I spread this out, it's easier for me to write, right? Article, spread that out. Regardless if I do it this way or this way, article teaser is still going to get props and still going to get an ID, title, and create a date. Again, the spread operator simply just breaks it. I guess it just breaks apart this object. So we're not passing an object down to our article teaser. We're passing individual values, and the spread operator kind of just automatically pairs it. You remember from Python where we had the star operator? So Python, we had this operator, which basically created keyword arguments, if you remember. So we had a dictionary in Python. This would break values into key value pairs. So it's the same thing essentially what the spread operator is doing. It's just breaking an object instead of a dictionary into individual components. So they're kind of just like floating out in space. They have no relation. Like this title has no relationship with this ID. They're not bundled together. They're just individual values that we've created from our original object. All right. So again, either way you do it, your article teaser will not have to change. This will give it extra data, which is fine. This way I prefer to do it is to specify exactly what article teaser wants and not give it extra information unless it absolutely needs it. So given that, we are creating a bunch of article teasers, returning items, and running. All right, I think that should take care of our article list. All right, spread operator.
Hey, Ankur, where is the article prop coming from into article list? Like you just
yeah, we still need to handle this part. So we're getting 2 props in our article list. So let's kind of comment that in here. We get articles is 1. Again, I just copy this from our README file. So these are props being passed in. Props. Articles, an array of article objects, and then handle title click a function. So we are using props.articles and using a map function. Again, this is one of our handy dandy array methods or array functions that you all should be familiar with. If you're not, definitely get familiar with them through your challenges. So map essentially is going to take each individual article entry in our articles array. It's going to also pass an index, so we should probably have a key in here. Key will just be an index. Let's call it article. Sorry, I just want to make sure I have unique key values. All right, so the key will be article dash the index. That's what index is for. The article, again, it's each entry in my articles array. We use that in our map function. So it's essentially like doing a for loop where we get each entry at each index and then use that to create a component. I don't know if that answered your question, Guillermo, but yeah, we still need to handle these two items. So article list is not being rendered anywhere. If we look at our app.js, we are rendering an article teaser and app nav, article teaser, and an article. We need to add in article lists here. That's probably our next step. So like continue reading on here. So we have React router. Okay. Let's not get to React router yet. Let's actually just take a look at our article list. So I'm going to add that in here. So I'm going to add in an article list. I think VS Code was nice to me and automatically imported that. If you don't have that, you're going to need to add that. The article list is part of my components. I like adding comments to know what my imports are all doing. That's totally optional. Okay, so I have article lists. I don't need article teaser anymore because that's being rendered by my article list. But I need to pass in two values. Again, I'm just going back to article list. We have two values we need to pass in as props. Articles is one, handle title click is the second. So let's make sure we pass those in. So articles needs to be one prop. Where do we get articles from? Well, let's take a look at what we have right now. So we have an individual article. We have nav items. So I think reading our requirements, we don't want a random article. So I'm actually gonna get rid of that state value. I'm gonna pass in my news object to my article list because that's my entire articles object. So news will be passed in there. Then we want sets, handle, title click. I'm terrible with names. Yep, handle title click is what we called it. So we need to match those names. And then what's going to handle the title click here? So here. Actually not sure what we need to pass in here. Is it this function? Yeah, I think it might be this function here. So let's stub that out here. I'm going to do handlers. Let's create a const handle nav. Sorry, I need to read this readme here. So a function. Not sure what that function is meant to do, but let's just create a function here. So const handle article. That will eventually do something for us. For now, let's we're gonna pass it. Where do we pass it here? So we go to article teaser. When we click on article teaser, we're passing an ID. Okay. So again, I want to make sure we understand what's going on here. So app.js is passing down handle article click. Click, click, click. All right, so we're passing handle article click without typos, hopefully, down to our article list. Article list is accepting that as handle title click as the prop. When we look at article list is simply taking in its props and passing it down further down to each article teaser. All right, so we're just kind of acting as a middleman for this handle title click prop. We're just taking it from our parents, which is app. We're accepting it in article list as a prop, and we're passing that down as a prop to each article teaser. So if I go back to my app.js, I know there's a hand raised. Kevin, did you have a question? Not sure if you're muted or no question.
Can't hear you, Kevin.
I was saying can you hear me now?
Yep.
No, okay. The news that JSON doesn't actually have IDs in it.
Use.
Yeah, the news you're passing to the article thing. I just noticed, I mean, if you look at the JSON, there's no actual indexes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That'll likely cause me some issues. So Kevin pointed out that, yeah, we don't have indices in here. We have the array has indices, but the object does not have an ID. Thank you, Kevin, for pointing that out. So if you look at article list, want to make sure. So article ID does not exist. We should be able to do index here. I think maybe index +1. We'll worry about issues there, but thank you for pointing that out. I think that would cause us issues. So the ID, there's no article.id. We need to use the index here. Cool. Thank you, Kevin. All right. Yeah. So previously we were setting an index. Notice we were not getting it from the article itself. We were just getting a random index, but that was taken away. Let me go to that. All right. So we created this handler. Right now, this handler is simply logging the article ID that we clicked on. So let's take a look at that. Make sure some of this stuff is wired up. So again, just to reiterate what I did, I've changed this to article list. I've added article list here. I've mistyped article click article. Okay, so what should happen is now we're rendering an article list component that should show every single article as an article teaser component. When we click on it, we should see the ID printed out to the console. Any questions on what we've wired up so far?
You got handle article click and not clicked with the ED on the end of it.
You are right. Let's go with click. I usually like past tense, but I guess we're not using past tense. All right, article not defined, line 50. That happens. Line 50. Oh, all right. I'm going to get rid of this temporarily. Oops. Yep. That's not good. So we're getting undefined. Oh, there we go. I don't know what was the issue there. All right. So notice what we got here. We got all the article titles here. So we got the title and the date. So it looks like that's part of our article teaser. So again, not the best formatted, but we do have our article list component working now. All right, so that looks good. If we click on this, what do we get in our console? We should get the article ID. So let's kind of see that. Click on this, article 5. Okay, let's go down, maybe down here. All right, so that looks like it's working correctly. Again, these aren't links. That's something we probably want to resolve, but we can click on them still. So that looks like it's working. Cool. All right, so I think my article list looks like it's doing its job of rendering a bunch of article teasers. Again, want to format stuff eventually. We'll worry about that later. Kind of continue going on here. All right, so let's talk about the router. So as we kind of highlighted early on here, we can't simply use A tags for navigation. It's going to reset our application each time if we go to a new page through A links. To resolve that, we use the React router. It's an open source library. If you Google for React router DOM, you should get taken to a page for reactrouter.com. So that's going to be our resource here. It has pretty good documentation. We're just going to kind of follow what they're going to walk us through here. So to install React Router, we need to install react-router-dom. We can use yarn, but for our needs, we've been using npm. So let's not break tradition, I guess. So I'm going to go back to my terminal here. Let's kill our server for now. All right, so we're going to do npm. Let's bring up our package.json. So this is our package.json right now. Notice we have React Bootstrap, React DOM. Do npm React router DOM. Excuse me. All right, so notice that's what happened here. React router DOM. Oh, I didn't do install. So npm install React router DOM. All right, that should enter a new entry into our package.json. Tell us what version it is. There you go. So we're using React router DOM 6.0.2. All right, so now that's installed, we should have all the functionality that we want to use. So let's take a look at their documentation, kind of see how this can be structured. So notice in their app component, they add in a new, they use a new child component called router. This router is coming from React router down. So we import browser router, switch, route, and link. These are all components that we're going to use with our router. So we're going to be using some link tags. These are essentially going to replace our A tags. So the format for that is this link component takes in a 2 and the route we want to go to. This is going to be very, very similar to the routes we're creating in our Django projects, right? Where we have the urls.py, we specify different routes to take us to different pages. That's essentially what this router is going to be doing for us for our React application. So down here, we use a switch statement, which essentially gives us the first option. It's not going to render all of them. It's going to pick the first one that matches. Here, we're going to use a route component and the path we want to go to. Again, the path is essentially our urls.py, where we specify the routes there. So if we want to have an about page and a users page and a home page, we specify the exact routing for that. And then with the component we want to render. All right, so let's kind of get to adding some routing to our app. So I'm going to add that to my app.js. All right, so here we need to include a few things. We don't need package.json. All right, so we're going to change our app.js. Currently, we're just showing some components here. We're going to add some routing. So let's do components, imports. We're going to need browser router, I think. Routes and link from React router down. Let's put that up here. All right, so we're going to be using browser router route and link. Let's read our README page, make sure we are following directions. Where did that go? All right, so let's rewrite our render. So we're going to be writing our render for our app to look like this. Router here, I'm not sure why that's not browser router, should be the same. App components, we're going to have our app nav and then a router down there. Okay, so app nav is here. Let's add our router right here. So browser router is what I'm going to use. Browser router. Inside of it, I think we need a switch statement. Let's go add that in here. I didn't include that. Go switch. All right, and this is going to be all of our routes we want to use here. So switch. All right, so again, this is very similar to our urls.py from Django, but we just create some routes here. So routes is the component we use. The path is how they actually get to that particular route. So what are we going to have here? Let's see what they give us. So we have the slash is going to be our home page, and then if we get articles and an article ID, we want to go to article page. These are components that were given to us. So if you look in the pages folder, we should have a home page and an article page that we need to maybe do some things on. All right, so app.js. So our path / will go to components equals homepage. And then we have routes or path equal to /article. All right, so in Python, or for Django, sorry, our syntax for capturing variables was angle bracket, the type, and then the name. So article ID. Again, this was in Django. In the React router, instead we use just a colon to specify this as a variable, and that's all we need. We don't need angle brackets. This should do the job. So article ID, this is going to be a variable that's going to be captured from the URL. Again, same concepts that we use in Django is going to be used here. So again, this will be like the actual article ID. And that should render a component of article page. All right, so again, this is acting as our urls.py essentially here. Now that we have these paths, we can set up links. So let's go to, where is it? All right, let's kind of make sure we follow our wiring here. So article teaser, when we click on article teaser, we call props.handle title click and pass it an ID. We're using an A tag here. Instead of using an A tag, we want to use the link tag from the router. So I'm going to actually make a change here. We're going to do imports link. I want to do this here. Actually, I'm going to leave my article teaser untouched. Sorry for the detour. So we're still going to use an A tag here. Using an on click, we're not using href here. We're going to call handle title click, which goes back up to article list. Article list is simply passing down handle title click from its props. So let's take a look at that. And we go to app.js. App.js right now is simply console logging the ID that was clicked on. Instead of doing that, we could do a return link. All right, this link again is a component coming from your React router down. So what we installed, that's giving us a link component. So we're using that here. We're going to tell it where we want to go to. So here we should be able to give it a path. Let's take a look at here. Go on. Yeah. All right. All right, sorry, I'm not quite reading this, but I'm just going to do this the way I know how. So link to, I want to go to a particular path. Let's go to documentation because that's what we want. All right, so link, we specify a to, we have path. So we can match these up. I don't think this is the best way to do it. So let's continue reading on here. I'm going to look for the route tag. So where's that route tag? Route. Again, this is a great resource. So hopefully you guys are on this page. The route component has some properties we could specify. So we could do a path. Just trying to look for if there's anything else. So let's see, there's props, components, exact, strict, location. All right, so path. Yeah, multiple paths, that's interesting. All right, I was looking for a name, actually. I was expecting there'd be a name, like you remember in our Django project, we had a name we could use to refer to that link, but it looks like we don't have that option here, right? So, all right, I guess we can't do that. My apologies. All right, so we're just gonna link to wherever path we want to go to. Here, we want to go to article / the ID, right? So we're trying to match this path down here. So we're going to specify /article because that is our base. But instead of passing :article ID, we actually want to pass it the ID of that article. Okay, so that should route us to here. And that should render an article page. What does an article page give us right now? Nothing. It just shows us article page. But let's see what happens right now. So I'm going to save what I have. I think I took down my server, so do npm start. All right, starting development server. Are you ready? Okay, switch is not exported from the down. Okay, fair enough. Switch.
I think they got rid of switch. It's called routes now.
Interesting. Wonder why this documentation is this because it's the wrong version?
Yeah, it's version 6 now.
Thank you, Guillermo. That doesn't exist. How do I get to the latest documentation then? Sure. All right. Not sure how to get. All right, there we go. If you have a lot of routes, especially should be backwards compatible.
I tried to use switch yesterday and it just wasn't working. It didn't work until I actually switched it to routes.
Gotcha. Okay, we'll go with that. Sorry for not documenting this. I'm not sure when it changed, but routes if I want. Okay, let's go with that. Thank you, Guillermo. Let's see if this works. Homepage not defined. Well, that makes sense because we've not imported it. Import homepage from dot pages / homepage. Oh, just yeah, homepage. And then we also have article page. Article page from article page. Looks like we got rid of these. Okay. Cannot resolve / article page to mistype it. Pages. All right, there we go. So I think we should be good now. Let's give it a try. Homepage not defined. Well, this is not fun. All right, let's go back to our examples. So go back to our routes elements. Route. All right, routes is going to do this, do that. Component.
I think they got rid of component and they made it element, and then you pass in the JSX element in there.
Interesting. So this is causing me some headaches here. I want to use a different version now. So let's try to hack this in here. So React router DOM v5. All right, I want to try to
You can uninstall it and then install at version 5 if you want, because you have 6 installed now.
Okay, yep, that is what I want to do. I was trying to specify something. So yeah, let's get to version 5 because it looks like version 6. I'm not ready for it yet. I need to read documentation. So do that sometime later. So we'll do npm uninstall React router DOM. Curious when they made this change because we were using version 5 over the summer. All right, so we do npm install React router DOM and then @5. Is that how we do it?
Yes.
Cool. All right, so we're going to use version 5 just because I know the syntax for that. I guess I don't know all the changes that was made between 5 and 6. So we're using 5.3. Again, something I want to highlight in case you guys missed this step. So we installed version 5 because version 6 has some changes that I do not know about. We could read documentation, but I don't want to struggle through it right now. So let's see. So we're using switch before. Let's go back to that and route and link. So let's switch. I don't know, reading the small part that we've read, I feel like they said they were going to maintain compatibility, so maybe we need to import this from somewhere else. All right, let's see if this works. Refresh. Oh, server's not even running. npm start. All right, starting development server. All right, there we go. We are back to working. So we have the article list component right here. What if we click on it now? Instead of printing the ID, what we should get is, if we remember, handle article click. It's still going to console log, but we're going to return a link. So that should give us routing to one of these paths. So in this case, if our paths match, article with an ID. Let's see if this actually takes us somewhere. Nope, that's not even doing anything. So console log, is that even
You're
logging?
clicking on the date, not the title.
Oh, thank you. There we go. So notice we got to do use React routers which we push to change a page to article ID. Okay, so that's coming from somewhere. Let's take a look at article page. That is not, it's coming from a home page. So it looks like my switch statement is not working correctly. Let's resolve that. So what's happening here is that this route is being hit, not this one. So maybe if I do exact, So again, this is reading documentation. I know I kind of sneaking these things in here, but looking at the route component, there's an exact Boolean here. So if we do exact here, when true, will only match if the path matches the location path name exactly. So I think without this, it looks like, let's see. /1 will match only, let's see, will not match this because there's an additional part in here. So it looks like without the exact being in there, it's matching the slash and accepting that because exact was not valid. So let's see if that cleans it up. Refresh. Click. Oops. Nope, still giving me, what's going on here?
Hey, Encore?
Yep.
You know, check your imports since you changed back to switch.
No, I did switch.
Oh, okay, you got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's take a look
You
at.
have to set a Boolean on that, on the exact.
It doesn't look like, again, I'm just going off of their documentation. Let's take a look at the switch statement. Maybe that's what I'm doing wrong. Switch. All right, switch. All right, so we want the route, each route has a div. I think we need a div maybe here. So let's add a div right here. I think these need to be nested in there maybe. There's a way for this to work, I promise. Okay, so save that. Let's give this a try. That's not good. All right, I think it's a good time for a break while we try to figure out technical difficulties. So 10:45 here. Let me pause the recording. All right, so before break, I was a little lost in my code. Apologies for that. So everything was working as intended. I just was not understanding my code properly. So app.js, what was going on here is we're showing our home page, and our home page is the one actually rendering our article list component. Previously, in my app component here, no. Nope. Yeah, so I had my article lists right here. So I thought I was using my article list. Both of them were being rendered. So if I actually go down here, let me try to fix this. App.js, article. All right, let's get rid of all of that stuff. Don't want this, don't want that, just want article list. All right, so I had my article list. What was going on is I had two items here. This article list is from the home page. If I keep scrolling, this is from mine. So if I actually click on these titles, that's where I should get the item here. We are not actually linking to anything though, but I'm gonna deal with that later. So get rid of my article list component. So we are, again, rendering our home page. Let's go back to our home page here. Did I lose my home pages? Am I going crazy here? Components. All right, only I've done that. All right, so pages, we have a home page. So home page right now, our on click is simply logging console log to do something. So instead of doing that, I'm going to maybe call, let's see, what do I have? Props.handle. Handle title click. So for my homepage, I might want to pass down handle title click, or maybe we could do this here. So I'm going to take my handler for my app, and let's see if we can just do that in our homepage. Homepage. All right, so we have handle article click here. Handle article click. All right, so now when we pass down a handler to article list, it's going to call up to our handle article click, which should log our ID, and then it should ideally run this link command, but I'm not sure if that's working. So link is not defined. That makes sense. So import link from React to router done. All right, let's see if this works. So link, refresh here. Not sure what that is. All right, let's see what happens. All right, so we're getting our article printout here. It looks like my link is not actually working. So let's try to resolve that. So right here. All right, homepage is mentioned is largely complete. It renders article list component. Yep, that makes sense. You need to complete the handle type. Alternative this function should trigger page change. So we need to use this.props.history. You could trigger a page change doing that. All right, I see. So the link tag should replace our A tags. It should not replace navigation. That is my mistake. So here we want to do props. So we should have access to something called props.history.push. We want to push locations. So I'm going to go to articles/ID. All right, so sorry for that whole detour. So link tags should replace your A tags. So that is what link should be used for. Link is not actually going to redirect you in any manner. So that's something what users need to click on. So they click handle title click. That should navigate us to there. See if this works. All right. Yeah, so history doesn't exist because I bet props.history doesn't exist. So let's do a console log props. All right, so I'm console logging my props. Let's take a look at our console. All right, so if I click on a title, notice I get empty, as in my props don't have anything in there. So the question is, why am I not getting props past my homepage? Well, if we look at what we're doing in app.js, we are simply rendering a homepage without any props being passed to it. So I did change this during break, so I don't want to throw you guys off. Previously, I was doing component equals homepage. I think this should still work, actually. I was reading the documentation for this. So if I do that. All right, so this is what I had before, just not to throw you guys off. Either way should work, just to mention that. All right, so we have this component prop that we pass to a route object, and that will specify what component to render. But this homepage, we're not passing any props down to it. We're simply just rendering it without any props. So I refresh this. Same error should happen. Oh, there we go. So here, we're getting router props automatically past the homepage. So the two ways we were doing it is this way. Routes. Article page. All right, so these are two different ways you can render a component using the route. You can nest it like we traditionally do, or you use the component property of the route component. Now, this way automatically passes something called route props down to your component that's being rendered. If you do it this way, notice that we're not passing any props down automatically. So here we need to, I think, get a little fancy. Forget the syntax here. I think it's like route props, that arrow. I'll need to check myself on this. I think something like that should achieve it. So what these route props again are being passed, and we need to capture them so that we could pass it down to our components. That slash not be there. All right, if we use the component this way, we can automatically pass route props, like that's handled already. So we don't need to do that ourselves. So now that we made that switch, notice that we have something called history, something called location, something called match available to us. So syntax error. All right, let's try to fix this. That. All right, should be good. So now article page, great. Doesn't give us anything. What is going on here? So, okay. Get rid of this. Go back to the home page. All right. So our home page has our article list. If we click on something, notice that our ID changes. That's a bad page, but we are taken to the article page now. That is ideally what we want. Our ID here is bad, so let's make sure we clean that up. Home page. So we're going to articles ID. That should be string interpolation. This is not JSX, this is just JavaScript, so we should be able to do $ID. All right, so that should take us to article/ID. Let's go back to our home. That's not gonna load up. All right, so our home page has our article list. If we click on our title, notice we're taken to articles/4. So I clicked on the 4th article, so our URL is article/4. And this is the article page. There's nothing interesting on it right now. We could jazz that up a bit. So article page, let's make that an H1 actually. And here we want to actually show something related to the article. So this is like our article detail page. So we probably want to show something like maybe an H2. It says article. We need to pass it props. Let's keep doing that. Props dot article dot title maybe. So let's actually show some detail here. So we need to pass some props as an article in it. Now, how do we get this article in here? Well, that's where we could use our news structure here. So this, we're going to use another feature of our router where we can extract that article ID from the URL. Again, we've done this with Django. We have the same general capabilities here. So we're going to use something called so I guess this is for class-based components. Props.match params should have that article ID available to us. Again, this article ID is coming from the URL that we specified. So if you look at app.js, this value is being captured in props.match.params, right? So props.match params should have an article ID in there. Again, this is for class-based components. I guess I did not update this page fully, but we are using functional components, so this does not exist. So props.history.push, we use that. Props.match.params is what we want. So in our article page, we should be able to investigate, say, let article ID equals props.match.params, and then the actual parameters. So in this case, it's article capital ID, because that is what our URL specified. And I'm matching this name right here. And I'm getting that right here from the URL. So given that, we should be able to create a state value. So let's do.
Hunter, could you console log match right there and see what comes out?
Sure. Props.match. All right, I'm going to create a state value. So hopefully I'm forget about states. So it's going to be article and set article. It's going to be use states. I'm going to import this if VS Code doesn't, but VS Code has my back there. Use states will be news index article ID. All right, so we're using, again, our news objects or array there. Based on the article we have passed, we actually grab the article. Then we should be able to use the article internally right here. All right, so props will have this match object that has params, and that's going to have the actual value from the URL. And we could use that ID to actually get the article from our data, and then you can use the article as we need here. Why is this all red here? Oh,
I think you need to surround all of that with a div.
You're right. I can only return one parent item. So again, always return one node. So I need a surrounding div there. All right, so let's take a look. right? If you ever see this error again, this just means you need to refresh your React app. This is just some bug that happens. All right, so we do have a problem here. We have cannot read properties of null, reading params. That looks like issue with my props. So let's do console log props. It's probably because I'm not passing my router props correctly. All right, go to our home page. Still no. Probably should put these above. So again, router props, probably not passing those correctly. All right, we have this. So we do have location. Our match is null. So that is an issue. Guillermo, is that why you want me to print it out?
Yeah, I ran into this problem yesterday too, and I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, let's try to figure out. So we are at our home page. Why is it rendering our article page? Now, this goes back to my question of the switch. Is this working correctly? Let's get rid of the div. Let's try without div. All right. So the switch statement is going to read require some reading. What the switch should be doing is picking one of these elements out of here. So it's going to match either this or this. Before I had a surrounding div, I think that was messing up my switch, as in that switch was just selecting that div, is my understanding. I want these routes to be directly under my switch so that only one of them will be selected. So now I'm getting to my home page because my route is localhost 3000, like there's imaginary slash here. This is my home page, that slash. When I actually click on an article, now it should take me to articles 1. Let's take a look at what's in our console. So we get article, take a look at our history. All right, now we actually have a match here. So we have path, URL. The path is, all right, params is what we want. Params, there's nothing in here. That's not good, but we are actually getting to our article page. Nothing's getting rendered because something's going wrong there. There's, all right, so we got an error article page, so let's go through it. Now read properties null, let's start from scratch. So let's go back to our home page. All right, click on a link. All right, so we got article 1, history, match. Params is still empty, so we're not getting an article ID passed to us, which makes sense when we're not rendering anything. We still should see article page. Why aren't we seeing that? Why are we not seeing our page here? Any ideas? Any ideas? App.js. All right. So let me change this. No, that's fine. All right. So just to go back on what we were talking about before, both these ways are ways you can render a page. If you do it this way, you need to manually pass in router props. If you do it this way, router props is automatically passing for you. But that is not my issue right now. I'm at articles 1, and I'm seeing nothing here. Any ideas? I should see article page at the very least. Let's
Did you destructure the props there so that is it props.article or is article already destructured so you're getting article.title?
So article I'm getting as my state value.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if my article ID is, what is it? 1. That should get me, I mean, news definitely has at least one entry in it. Let's verify that. So console log article. Let's make sure we know what that is. Save that. Refresh. That's didn't give us anything. All right, so we get article 1, we get a history. Why is nothing being rendered? Something's amiss. Maybe our news data is not loading correctly.
Okay, I'm getting an error actually when I'm running it that says each child in a list should have a unique key prop and to check the render method of article list.
Yeah, so that's a warning. You'll normally see that if we're not sending a key, which we're not doing in homepage. So let's resolve that. So this needs a key here. Again, that's a warning. You should still be able to run your app. Well, let's give this an ID. Wait, article list. That's fine. Yeah, so Omar, if your error is coming from article list, it's likely because you didn't have a key here. But if that's not the issue, you might need to look into that further.
Okay, yep, that was the issue. Thank you.
Cool. But yeah, again, easy to run into. Again, that's just a warning. React wants to be able to identify elements uniquely, so he needs a key. I don't know why it doesn't use ID, but I guess we're not always specifying ID anyway. Okay, let's try to figure this out. So I want to know why my article page is not rendering. So let's take a look at news. Make sure news is something we're in here, because we're definitely getting printouts here. Refresh. Go home. All right, click on my title. So we get article, we get our history, but then everything kind of just dies here. Could this be an issue somehow? Props.match frames. We have props that.
What if you print article title? What's article title? Is that showing anything?
Yeah, it looks like my params is the issue here. So if I copy the console log that out, should be fine. All right, that maybe we should fix it. Maybe. Oh, nothing. All right, I'm kind of stumped here, guys. So we're printing out article, we're printing out our props. That's coming from these two lines. I do a console log of news, and that doesn't do anything. Is it not importing news correctly? Let's get rid of that. then.
Conquer on the app.js, on the main app.js,
Go on.
like if you can go click on your app.js.
App.js.
Yeah. So I just want to check something. So right here on line 33, when you pass in that home page, it's my understanding that automatically like gives you a match prop. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So why is it not showing anything? Again, this is the same problem that I couldn't fix yesterday.
Yeah,
I
so-
kept getting exactly what you're getting.
Our homepage is getting those props. We're dealing with article page right now, but article page is getting matched. So if we keep doing what we're doing before, so if I click on a title, we get our article ID printed out, and then we also get our router props. So this are our props. We have a history, location, we have match. Params is empty, and I'm not sure why. So params should have the article ID, so maybe I'm not matching that up. So article.
Can you try just making that second route similar to that first route on 33 and check if the params are yielded in that match object?
Sure.
Or you can just, yeah, or you can just check, you know, the homepage route.
Yeah, I did it with the component equals route on line 34, and I'm still getting the same issue. So I don't think it's that problem.
Right. They're both of them should be doing the same thing, but worth a check. So still don't hurt to check. We click on a title. So yeah, we're still getting our match, but our params is empty. So we need to figure out why our params not being captured. So let's make sure we double check everything. So we have article ID here. Let's look at our navigation. So that's maybe the only thing suspect here. So we're going to articles. I think that's the problem. Maybe we need to go to article. Yes, article, not plural. Naming, again, kind of sensitive. So I need an article there, not articles. That would make sense why nothing's kind of been thrown here. But I'm not sure why we're console logging anything anyway. Article page, all right, let's try to regather our path here. So article page should be rendered now when I click on something. Let's see if that's true. All right, there we go. Article page title. So I just had bad navigation. I'm actually not sure why I was still getting stuff out here, maybe from another console log. Who knows? All right, let's try to fix this now. All right, so we grab the article ID from our match. So match.param should have an article ID. Okay, we need to verify that. We do want a state object, so let's do all this again. Const article, set article, use states. That's going to be news article ID. We have an article component. Great. Let's just use that. So this takes in all this stuff. So article page can simply render an article component. So article, this is where I will use the spread operator just to be kind of lazy. So I'm going to do ... article. All right, so basically we get an ID from the URL. We use that ID to get an article from our data, and then we pass that data basically down to our article component, which should take care of rendering the article details here. Oops, not article list, article. So again, this is going to show us the title, created date, byline, etc. All right, now let's see if everything works. All right, there we go. Looks like I got my article page. I'm going to kill my inspector there. Okay, so I click on something. There we go. Here, taken to the article page. Here's the title. Here's the time, byline, and abstract. All right, that took a while. Sorry for all the runaround. Lesson learned, maybe not lesson learned, but again, naming matters. So I had articles here that was causing me issues. Passing router props, that's another thing that can kind of get you there. So again, make sure you either use components, or if you manually need to do it, which sometimes you will need to. So I want to make that clear that sometimes you do need to render things manually. Routes. Now the question is, when might that come up? Anyone have an idea why I might need to do article page? So again, in this case, we need to pass it router props. And then we need to spread that out. So router props. Anyone know why this might be something I have to do? Any ideas, any guesses?
If you have like a lot of props to pass in.
Sort of. Yeah, so sorry, could you repeat that?
So maybe if you have like a lot of props to pass in, it might be helpful to break it up like that.
Yeah, so it's related to that. So in this case, both of these components that we're rendering just take in router props. There's no other props that we are passing. However, if article page needs something else outside of router props, as in we need to pass it something else, like let's say I want to add a prop called donuts equals donuts. Now, the way I'm doing component right here, component only is going to pass router props. What if I want to specify an additional, prop to homepage? I can't simply like do donuts here. That's not how the component will not work. This will give me an error at best. You can't, this is not actually rendering the homepage. It's just specifying which component should be rendered whenever this route gets hit, right? So again, I can't specify additional props this way. So I need to either, manually render the article page, or there's actually a render prop that you specify for the route that can call a function for you that will do exactly the same thing. And you can read documentation again. You can use the render prop for the route, or just kind of break it apart and do it this way. Again, that might be a use case occasionally. So kind of understand when you might need to manually render something versus using component directly. So you can use component directly if you don't need additional properties to be passed down. If you do need additional properties, you're going to need to take the second approach. Okay, let's make sure we hit up everything. So I know we were kind of jumping around. So we did our React router. That gave us ability to go to different locations. We set up a router. We specify routes, and then the component that should be rendered based on the route. So that's going to be done by the router homepage. That just renders our article list. That wasn't too much to it. The key thing is we want to navigate using this, or we want to use props.history.push instead of, again, redirecting to a specific page. Article page, nothing too crazy going on there. We're simply taking in the article ID. So let's put some comments in here. Grab article ID from URL. I think I did have one issue. I think I was off by one. So I clicked on the first item. I think that has index 0, which seems to work fine right now. So notice it's article 0. Normally, you're not 0 based when you're working with URLs. So I might want to make that article 1 and adjust accordingly, but still works right now. I don't think I want to deal with that right now, but might need to change that later because I do recall that being an issue. All right, let's get to the last part of the challenge is styling with Bootstrap. So again, I really enjoy styling. Let's actually get familiar with how to style with Bootstrap. So if I click on this, not found, terrific, refresh. I think I updated that link. All right. Why is that not found? All right. All right, React Strap is where we're trying to go to. So React Strap. All right, that's where we want to go to. I don't know why that link's bad. All right, so maybe update that link here so that no one else runs into it. All right, they're using React Strap. I think I installed React Bootstrap. Again, both similar things. So I'm not going to use React Strap. I'm going to use React Bootstrap, since that's what I said I'd use earlier. React Bootstrap should have documentation pages. There it is. All right, getting started. So let's get started here. We did npm install, so we already did this. If you did not install that, you're going to need to install that. Once you have that installed, you can import things from React Bootstrap. So in this case, you want to use button. We can use button. I think Navbar was something we wanted to use. So I'm going to search for Navbar. That didn't find what I was looking for. Navbar. Click on that. All right, Navbar. So this is something we want to use for our new site. So I'm going to just follow their instructions here. So it looks like we need to probably import Navbar from somewhere. So let's go to our app.js. Let's import some stuff here. So let's do React Bootstrap. So import Navbar. Does that work? Oh, probably should put that in my app nav component. We have an app nav component, might as well use that in there. All right, so I'm going to do this here. Navbar. So instead of using nav, I'm going to use Navbar. Let's see if that works. So Navbar. Navbar's not find. Navbar. All right, just gotta find it. Find it yet? Typo. Allow those. So Navbar. All right, so we have Navbar. Let's see if that actually changes our appearance. So I'm going to go back to my homepage. All right, app nav component. That is not even being rendered, I bet. Yeah. So app nav component, I'm just going to replace that with an app nav. App nav. Let's take a look at that. Reading map undefined. That's because we need to pass it some props. So I think I deleted code that I should have left in here. So nav items should be nav items. Let's make sure we pass it what we need to. So we go to app nav. app nav needs nav items. Okay, that's what I was missing. Anything else? We need a handle click apparently. So let's give it a handle click. JS, yeah, handle. I'm not sure what the code was here before, so apologies. Let's just give it a dummy function to call. Handlers, and then we'll do const handle nav. That arrow function. Let's do a console log. I don't think we're navigating to anywhere right now. What are we passing? We're passing a value. So it's going to take in. Okay. So hopefully that should make this happy. Handle click. Oh, what am I doing here? So app nav. I already have your app nav. Why am I doing it twice? But all right, we already had our app nav, so I guess I didn't need that. Clicked item, console log, that's cool. All right, nuts. What's our app bar? So go back to app nav.js. All right, so we're using Navbar here. But we need to use some additional things. So that's where we're reading documentation. So we should have a Navbar brand, toggle, collapse. Brand would be an icon, nav container. All right, what do we want here? Container. All right, so we want nav link, it looks like, maybe. All right, nav. Our Navbar has nav items in there. Just gonna try to read this. All right, so instead of a links, let's try putting navs and see if that gives us anything different. Nav not find, makes sense. Import nav from /nav. Nav link maybe. Where's nav coming from? I always wish they told you exactly where these items are coming from. They don't show me my imports here. Nav. All right, so import nav from, all right, that's what I was trying to do. Oh, wrong import. Yeah, let's see if that does anything for me. Okay, so our look changed here, nothing too exciting. We need nav links inside of there. So again, reading documentation is half the battle here. I'm not doing a great job, obviously, but we have nav items. So there should be a nav item and nav link, looks like. So nav item. Let's create a nav.item. Item, and then inside of there, we should have a nav.link is the way we're gonna go about this. Nav.link and nav.link. All right, so I'm just trying to match their example here. So you have a nav item and a nav link instead of a nav object. You know what a nav object is, to be honest. Okay, we got some links here. Still doesn't look like what they had on their page, right? I want it to look like this. So it looks like they wrap it in a nav. Is that what I need to do? All right, so we have Navbar. I'm going to make this a function because it looks like I'm adding a lot of code here. Not what I want to do. So I'm going to call this render nav links. Grab all this good stuff. And simply create a function. renders, render const, render nav link will be an anonymous function. All right, so we're rendering a bunch of nav items that's wrapped in a nav bar, but their example has a nav. So let's go back to here. All right, so I have nav bar. Looks like we need a surrounding nav. So let's give that a try. Nav is what they want. Nav is what we'll give them. Okay, so we surrounded our nav items with a nav component. Again, I'm not sure what that does. Items not defined. That makes sense. Okay, does that change our look? No, it does not. Why? Get started. Did I miss a step here? We installed. All right. I think we need these scripts in there. All right, so I'm going to add these scripts. Where do I add these? In my index.js. I guess I need to go to my index.html. Sites, public. I'm gonna drop these in here because I think that's where we link script tags. Again, I need to read more on this, but I'm gonna get some styling here that, oh, that'll do it. Maybe style sheets we're missing. Import style sheets. Can't import there. Link. Index.js or app.js file. Okay, we do that there. App.js, import some CSS. So, does that give us down? Still no. All right. There we go. Sorry. All right. So I skimmed over the getting started. So we did our installation. We import stuff. You want to add CSS because that is where the styling comes from for Bootstrap. So make sure you import the CSS or link it in your index.html. So given that, we get the styling that we want. So now this is our nav bar here. Looks a little better. I mean, not super glorious. So let's go back to app nav. Get rid of this divider maybe. Okay, so we click on stuff happens. If you want to add in a image, maybe we could do that with the nav brand. So that'll be the last thing we do here. Let's look at the example here. So go back. Nav bars. So we want to throw in a brand like this. We should be able to do a brand link. So how do they do that? Here, they do navbar container, navbar brand, href, brand link. All right, so you nest an image in there, it looks like. Navbar.brand and an image. Let's try to do that. But they also have a container. Can I put container here? I guess that's easier ways to import. Navbar not defined. Just typed it. Okay, there we go. We get some of that. Let's get what I want. I wanted an image. So We put that inside of our container. Let's get a nice image here. So small donut image. All right, let's find something here. Let's grab this. Taking its time. All right, let's grab. Kind of large, I think. But should shrink. All right, that should work. Hopefully we can shrink it down. All right, so I have that URL. That is going to be right here. Width will be 30, seems good enough. Class name, I don't really care about class name. I think. All right, there we go. We got our logo in there. We want React Bootstrap though. We want donuts news. All right, cool. So kind of nice. So that's a Navbar component. Again, there's a lot more components out there. You guys can kind of explore. I'm not going to kind of struggle through it here, but it's kind of cool that I have this link here that should go to my homepage /home. So href, we don't want to go there. What if we wrap this on a link? I think that's tomorrow's challenge of linking the Navbar, so I don't think we need to do that today. Double check that. New site part 2. We did article list, React router, homepage, article page. Yeah, so I don't think we get into working with the Navbar today. So we'll leave that as tomorrow's challenge. All right, any questions on kind of everything we did? I know it was kind of helter-skelter at times. Sorry about that. The router is a key highlight of today's challenge. Make sure you understand how to create routes, how to render components based on the route. So again, use the components prop, or you can just render it kind of manually by nesting it like we do with normal components. Seth, you have a question?
Yeah, so for this one, do you want us to stick with version 5 or move to version 6 and try and learn the new stuff?
That's a great question. I would encourage you to use version 6. That's the latest. Obviously, I need to use version 6 also. So I was reading the documentation. Let's just get back to the documentation there. So React router DOM v5. So they're just upgrading from v5. It looks like they've not released. Oops, go back. Looks like there's some upgrade package that's not released yet. So I think that's what this warning is. So I think that is what would support backwards compatibility. But you kind of read this and yeah, so I think Gero mentioned it, that switch is now routes. So that's something I ran into. So there might be a few differences. For the most part, I would expect that you don't have to change much. I don't know why they got rid of switch. I'm sure they had some reasoning. Yeah, simple enough to convert to routes. I'm sure we could, let's actually try to do this on the fly since we have a few minutes before lunch. So any other questions while we kind of just tinker with this? So I'm gonna uninstall, right, can I upgrade? Upgrade React router DOM. Not sure if that'll work.
I have a small question. I noticed the new dot notation with those Bootstrap tags. Is there a way like I can do that? Would that just be returning an object with 2 tags, you know, across different names, and I'll be able to call the dot notation or something like that?
Sorry, Kevin, your audio was kind of hard to understand. I cut part of it. So really the question was about the dot right here, right? How do you achieve that? It's a good question. I don't actually know offhand, so I'll leave that as a research project, but I think this is just like a subcomponent of the parent component. I'm not quite sure how you create that, but I'm sure there's easy documentation to find. So
Copy
React
this.
subcomponents. Create React subcomponents a simple way. Let's check out this article. Not sure, actually. I've never done that manually. I know I've used it, but I've not created my own subcomponents. That's native up here. Yeah, I'm sure it's possible. I guess that's a little above my knowledge because I've never really done it. But good question. Yeah, there is a way to kind of go about doing that. Not sure how though. All right, where were we? We were. Oh yeah, we're upgrading. So look at my package.json now. It's still at 5.3. Oh. Anyone know how to upgrade? I can uninstall and install, but npm install new grade version. And stop recording here.